Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News for You. And if you're watching next year's delayed repeat of this show, then this is what life was like back in the 20th century. In the news this week, as part of the divorce settlement, Margaret Cook agrees to let Robin have the stereo. In Sellafield, as a party balloon bursts, workers show they have every confidence in plant safety. And with the millennium just 6 weeks away, Britain's sweet shop owners have their doubts about the new dome on a stick. On Paul Merton's team is the former Harrods spokesman whose chat show was recently broadcast on the cable channel UK Living, although obviously we only have his word for it. Michael Cole. And with Ian Hislop tonight is a former Tory MP who served on the Longford Committee on Pornography but admits that he blotted his copybook. Well, if ever there was an occupational hazard, Gyles Brandreth. And so to round one, where the four most blindingly obvious stories of the week masquerade as quiz questions. Paul and Michael. Bombs away.
There's a Stormont, the big house on the hill. Jerry Adams, is it there?
Yeah, Jerry Adams.
And there's Mr. Mandelson, making sure he's
Mr. Trimble.
Yes.
There's the possibility of real peace in Northern Ireland, which is very, very good news if it happens. The IRA has said, well, we'll sort of give up our guns, but don't push us on it.
Yes, the Irish questions baffled politicians for hundreds of years. Peter Mandelson, about 30 minutes it took him.
Absolutely. Have you ever met Peter Mandelson, Giles?
Yes.
Right.
I didn't inhale. He's a nice man, actually.
Is he?
Yes,
Right.
and I think he regards you as a bit of a role model.
He's...
For what?
But you just said he was a nice man.
No, I just meant the natty dressing, the cross-gender appeal, all of that. It works.
Would you like to clarify that exactly?
I think he means neither men nor women fancy you.
The only reason I came to this is because my wife was so interested in him.
And is she getting better?
Which is quite fantastic.
Yes, she's very well, actually, yeah.
You actually believe it, don't you?
Did you ever report on Ireland as a BBC news reporter in your day?
Many, many days there.
You won an award, didn't you, for...
Oh, but my work won
Best
a couple
hair.
of awards. Yes, best hair. Best hair. Best hair in a role of its own.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least I don't dye mine.
Is it true you were known as Black & Decker?
Yes, yes. I had a Black & Decker power comb. But, you know, it all looks... Is it on straight? It's okay. But listen, if we're going
That's
to talk...
clearly not a wig.
Do you think this is a good idea that...
Nobody would buy a wig that looked like that.
Yes, this is the renewed hope of peace in Northern Ireland. Peter Mandelson is currently having his London flat reinforced with bulletproof windows and bomb-proof floors to guard against any possible assassination attempts, but there are still fears that Gordon Brown may one day get his man. Ian and Giles, your selection.
Yeah, oh, look. Yes, dynamic Dobbo. Oh, gorgeous Glenda. And here comes the Newt lover, I bet. Yes, absolutely.
It is King Ken.
Yeah, it was, of course, the Labour candidate for mayor.
It's a historic fudge, and Ken is going to be able to stand.
So who would you choose, then?
Glenda. I'm going for Glenda. She is not nearly as sour as she looks. No, she is actually a jolly person. She's a jolly person.
Is she a bit of a hoot?
Let's not go too far. But in her own way.
But aren't you meant to be a Conservative?
Well, the Prime Minister is supposed to be a socialist.
I would have guessed you were more of a Geoffrey Archer man.
Do you know there was talk of me being his running mate?
Really?
Do you and Geoffrey go way back?
We do go way back, actually. I first came across him when I was at prep school, because he came to my prep school to teach people to run.
course you did.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wish I'd had that sort of education. I've been walking everywhere for the last 42 years. You see it on the television, but you say, that's not for the likes of us.
Yes, this is the Labour Party's mayoral election fiasco. Tony Blair is getting increasingly desperate in his search to find the right candidate, although not quite as desperate as The Guardian suggested by the front page earlier on in the week. Paul and Michael, your dedicated follower.
Well, this is...
Cherie, yes.
QC. A bad hair morning, that was. Bad hair morning. It's all about...
Clothes.
Dresses. Yeah. Haven't got enough money for them. All the newspapers have been telling Mrs...
Finds it a bit boring to constantly be buying clothes to attend all these official engagements.
And what has she been attacked for by the media?
They called her drab, a frump.
Frump, yeah.
And the problem is her hips. They don't have hanger appeal.
Her hips don't have hanger appeal.
Did you say you lost your seat at the last election?
What do you mean, hanger appeal?
I don't know what I mean. I've no idea.
But by God, I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
But can I say something about Cherie?
No,
Yes, do.
No.
Yes. She's basically a good egg.
Right.
The problem is she's shaped like one.
We lost a lot of people
I
there.
didn't have their votes anyway.
That's the good thing about being a Tory, you don't have anyone.
Exactly.
So how do her dresses compare, for example, to your jumpers?
Funnily enough, they're quite comparable.
Didn't someone heckle you in the comments saying, woolly jumper, woolly jumper?
John Prescott heckled me. I was making almost my first speech and I heard this sophisticated voice in the front bench opposite. Woolly jumper! I struggled on, but on he went, woolly jumper! Eventually I had to pause and point out to Mr. Prescott that the joy of a woolly jumper is that you can take it off at will, whereas the blight of a woolly mind is that you're lumbered with it for life.
Is it right that you once heckled Blair, though, accusing him of wearing makeup?
Yes, that is true as well.
What did you shout? Your big girl's blouse?
So this was one of the more highfalutin debates going on in the House of Commons.
We were trying
a jumper. Oh, you're wearing makeup.
We were trying to raise the tone.
Right.
They scrapped the wrong chamber, really, didn't they?
Cherie Blair's fashion dilemma was covered in great detail in the Daily Mail in an article by John Dean's chief political correspondent, which can only mean that somewhere a baffled fashion editor is struggling to write 1,000 words about David Trimble. And finally, Ian and Gyles.
This is the temple.
Yeah, there's some fans.
Yes, this is British culture at its height. We weren't following this, were we? Because we're not very into football.
Well, that's good of you to notice that. No, I wasn't following it, no.
Ian invited me round to watch Ukraine beat Slovenia over the chicken Kiev.
This is just pure fantasy.
No.
The idea I'd invite you round is really quite offensive.
It's all about the new National Football Stadium. Wembley Stadium, built in 1923, is going to be swept away, and Sir Norman Foster, the only architect who works in Britain, is building us a new one with a great big arch over the top. Very sad to see those beautiful towers going. There's a small football team down in the West Country has made a bid for the towers. Also, Mohammed, he wanted to buy them and take them to Fulham and put one on either side of the River Thames and have a nice new footbridge across, which would have been lovely.
Mohammed, this is the prophet or a friend of yours?
No friend of mine.
He's got quite a lot of profit, I think.
Yes. How you spelling profit?
It's all off anyway.
It's off, is it?
It's off. Kate Hoey, our sports minister, is against it. It's all not going to happen.
I'm interested that you mentioned Kate Hoey, because didn't you try to lure her to the Conservative Party at one stage?
You read this book of mine very carefully, which is sweet.
I haven't gone near it, but the research is... Plans were this week unveiled for the new Wembley Stadium, set to feature a magnificent 430-foot arch, high enough to be seen for miles around, but sadly not quite high enough to stop a Gareth Southgate penalty leaving the stadium. So, at the end of that round, the score is very much 6 of one, half dozen of the other, being as it is 4 all. So to the world of tabloid headlines and all the opportunity for amusing bon mot that, as it were, throws up. Paul and Michael, your reverend spinner is Blair puts boot into car drivers.
Well, this is about Mr. Brown's pre-budget statement, in which he made it absolutely impossible for anybody to own a car. You can own a car, and you can fill it up with petrol, which is highly taxed, but for goodness sake, don't drive it anywhere. I understand that for men, even looking at a car with desire is going to be included in the new Sexual Offences Act, and this will be forbidden as well. We want cars...
What do you mean, somebody crouching behind the exhaust pipe?
Exactly. Don't burn your lips.
Sounds like the voice of experience there.
This is supposed to be about this week's news, isn't it? And the budget statement was last week. This week's news is the Queen's speech. It's about the transport bill and the Queen's speech, putting these restrictions, introducing tolls on the road.
Yes, this is. You're quite right. The Queen's speech. So what were the other things that were mentioned, the other bills?
Well, William Hague made a good joke,
Oh,
actually.
yes, he did. Say it. Go. So good.
Actually, I've gone off it.
No, go on. So what was the joke?
It was a very good joke.
I bet this will be funny.
It was a very good one.
I'm laughing already.
No, he said Prescott made the announcement about Park and Ride, and he said the only thing that Prescott would know about Park and Ride was parking one of his Jags and driving off in the other one. Which I thought was quite good for a politician.
But why would he want to do that? If he's in a car, why would he park one car to get into another car?
Why have 2 Jags? You both obviously like driving both of them.
Well, maybe his brother wants to borrow it.
Has he got a brother?
The other car is...
You don't know that he hasn't.
I don't.
Well then. Has he got a brother? Has he got a brother?
Look at Angus, he wouldn't know.
Well,
It's not on the sheet.
There might be a 1,000,001 chance. 1,000,001 chance. Just might be there.
He's got 2 brothers.
What are they called?
They're called Frederick and James.
Okay.
You know that's not true.
It's an absolute lie. But he doesn't know it's not true. What did they run out of in the House of Lords this week?
Swarfiga. The Queen likes to be greased down before she starts a speech. She slips out of the car that much quicker. My government tonight. So, she's been greased since the 50s. You try and assassinate her, somebody tries to squeeze her, whoop, she's up, she's away, she's gone.
Ermine.
They ran out of ermine.
They ran out of ermine.
Did they?
It's because all the hereditary peers.
Taking theirs home.
That's right.
So Baron Bragg had to lend his to others.
I want to play.
That's right. Lord Bragg got into trouble, in fact. Yes, he was guilty of wearing a technically incorrect robe.
Was it a backman cape? Because he will do that, you know.
Yes. No, he was supposed to wear 2 rows of ermine, and he wore 3 or 4.
Ooh. Well, that's interesting, because
so
in
angry.
the Queen's speech, aren't they banning fur farming? So what are they going to do for ermine in the future?
Oh, yes.
It was,
when you think about it.
Good to see the Queen announce the ban on fur trade as she sat with 2 dead stoats around her.
That's no way to talk about Prince Philip.
The speech included a bill to outlaw consenting sex between teachers and 16-year-old pupils, which was criticised by the NUT on the grounds that it was draconian, an infringement of personal rights, and would take all the fun out of end-of-term discos. Ian and Gyles, your royal shock. Queen takes on Prince for Millennium Song.
It's the pop group Queen taking on Prince, formerly known as Edward Wessex, for which should be the actual final anthem for the millennium.
Yes, what's going to take us into the countdown?
Yeah, tell us.
Is it going to be We Are the Champions?
Or...
It should be the music from Countdown.
That's what I thought.
And then fireworks.
Wonderful.
So how many Beatles songs have been shortlisted in this
Well, not really. One, there's All You Need Is Love, and then there's John Lennon Imagine, which is strictly a solo.
But they're not going to allow Imagine.
No.
Why
not?
Well, I think it's a touch tactless. Imagine there's no heaven just before the Archbishop of Canterbury comes on to read the prayer.
Imagine there's no Archbishop of Canterbury, doesn't really scan. And what would you rhyme with Canterbury? Fantaberry isn't a word, I've just made it up.
Could be a new soft drink, though.
What, Fantaberry?
Fantaberry. Sort of Ribena-y version. I'd buy it.
Well, you'd be alone.
You know nothing about soft drinks, Merton.
Well, I've never been so insulted in all my life. I'm going home. I've been stapled to the table. What's happening? Oh, I'm not going to leave for 9 years. Is it Sherry Blair?
Previous question.
Oh, right. I'm a psychic. I'm just my timing's out.
Do you know what the likely Christmas number one is?
Well, they're saying
It's going to be Cliff. It's going to be Cliff.
Yes, the Millennium Prayer is his record, isn't it?
Well, it's the Lord's Prayer.
It's the
done
Lord's
to music.
Prayer.
And what's the tune that...
Old Lang Syne.
Yep.
I've not heard it yet. It sounds a bit of a mixture. Have you got a bit of it?
You're quite fortunate. We were going to play it, but it was just too ghastly.
Oh, go on.
Go on.
Sing a bit.
Sing a bit.
Come on, Angus. You must have some talent locked up in that bloody world. You can't be reading out loud and that's it, surely. That can't be it. It can't be.
The BBC's Millennium coverage will feature a solo performance on a remote mountaintop from Dame Kira to Kanua. At least that's what they told her. Which, sobering thought, brings us to the end of that round, or very nearly the end. A quick bonus point for either team if they can recognise this story. Hamilton sues Al Fayed.
We can't really say anything about this, can we? Legally?
We can say that it started, the trial has started, and the jurors were sworn in.
And it's a very important case.
It's a very important case, and they were...
And one that is unique for me, because I hope both sides lose.
The jurors were asked, are you or have you ever been a supporter of Fulham Football Club? And I'm mortified to say that nobody there was.
Shame.
And there was laughter in court. Well, I've been a supporter of Fulham Football Club since I was 11 years old, and that's 45 years. So that's the only grounds, I'm sure, on which I would have been disqualified as a juror had I been called.
You haven't got tickets for the Tottenham Fulham game, have you?
Speak to me afterwards.
Oh, lovely.
Don't you, in fact, do rather good impersonation of Mr. Al Fayed?
Well, occasionally.
Come on.
I think I have to join Equity along with you to get into the performing
started?
business. No, I haven't.
It's very good.
Yeah, it's good.
If you close your eyes, you'd swear you were sitting next to him.
Yes, it's the news that Neil Hamilton's suing Mohammed Al Fayed, a court case which is sadly sub judice, but do feel free to talk about it at home. Which, sobering thought, means at the end of that quick round, it's Ian and Gyles who are high as kites, leading as they are 8-5. And so to the familiar stench of our one-out round. One question per team this week. Paul and Michael, your four are these five. Tony Blair, Richard and Judy, Geoffrey Robinson and Alec Ferguson.
This is something to do with the Sun newspaper.
Could be.
Mr. Blair writes a column for the Sun newspaper. In fact, he doesn't write it. Alistair Campbell writes it. Alec Ferguson writes a column for the Sun.
Yep.
Richard and Judy, I think, do contribute regularly as columnists to the Sun, and I think Geoffrey Robinson is going to lose his place in the Sun, at least as far as the Labour Party is concerned, when his book comes out.
Is the right answer.
Is entirely wrong.
Oh. Has Alex Ferguson got somebody else's ear stuck on his finger?
It could have included Gillian Tailforth.
Libel cases, libel actions that went wrong. They can't be blowjobs in Land Rovers, so it's got to be.
They've all been stuck in a lay-by.
Oh, yes.
And Mr. Blair had to go into the fast lane. They had to go to Mr. Prescott's special lane. They've all been helped through the traffic.
But it's the odd one out, so you have to pick one of them that has one.
Jeffrey Robinson's the odd one out.
Yeah.
Why?
Because he is.
I'll tell you, the answer is that they all made illicit use of the hard shoulder of a motorway, except Tony Blair, who made illicit use of a bus lane.
Yeah.
Richard and Judy avoided a traffic jam thanks to a police escort along the hard shoulder. They arrived at the This Morning studios 8 minutes before going live on air, leaving them rather more time than usual to prepare the show. In 1984, Geoffrey Robinson MP was found in his car fast asleep and blind drunk on the hard shoulder of the M6. And Mr. Robinson said at his trial, the police have gone over the top in enforcing the clampdown on drink driving at Christmas. Yes, if you can't get pissed out of your skull and drive down a motorway at Christmas, when can you? Ian and Gyles, your Aunt Sally's, are Barbara Cartland, Anne Widdecombe, Edwina Curry, and Prince Philip.
Well, that's clear.
It's something to do with teddy bears, because she's got a teddy bear, but you own teddy bears, or you've got a teddy bear factory or a museum or something.
Yes, at the National Teddy Bear Museum in Stratford-upon-Avon. The world's finest collection of teddy bears boasts bears belonging to His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, Edwina Curry, Dame Barbara Cartland, but not, alas, as yet, Anne Widdecombe, so she is the odd person out.
Is that true?
Yep.
It's not only true, it's the right answer. So this museum of yours was 10 years old last year?
Yeah.
And is it right that to celebrate, the Bears put on a season of Shakespeare plays?
You're right.
Right.
The Royal Shakespeare Company.
Oh, no, this is going to be a load of puns, isn't it? I can feel it in my bones. What's a king bear?
Yes, come on.
Oh, I don't know, the two bears of Verona. That's not really a pun, though, is it?
No, that's just...
McBear. The Merry Bears of Windsor.
No, that's just
hand bear.
putting the word bear in instead of another word.
Romeo and Paddington. That's a bit alternative.
Yeah.
Bear anus. That's Coriolanus, but bear in the front of it.
Yeah.
Bear anus. Coriolanus, bear anus. But you didn't have that.
No, because it is a family attraction based on 19 Greenwood Street.
Not anymore.
Upon Avon.
So Barbara's bear, then, you mentioned that. What, do you remember the name of Barbara Cartland's
Dame Barbara Cartland's bear is called the Prince of Love.
Oh,
And he is covered with sort of pink ribbons and little gold medallions. And all these bears, you know, they're marvellous. They're really good eggs in their own way.
Excellent. Don't you do an impersonation of Barbara Cartland?
No. Don't do that one.
Not what I read.
I've got a very funny story about her, but it's
Well,
for
let's
later.
not prejudge it.
And I know something about you and Edwina as well, Giles, so...
Oh, yes.
Is that true?
That I kissed Edwina when she was a teenager. Yep.
Would you describe her as a good egg?
Certainly not as a good lay, but I know what you're getting at. Actually, I kissed Anne Widdecombe the same season.
I know.
Same season?
Yeah.
Is it the breeding season?
I happen to be a contemporary.
You were a Deb?
No. No, I was at university at the same time as these people. I've just worn less well.
Do you know what you said about Anne Widdecombe?
Oh, Lord.
You said the integrity, the commitment, the ambition, the hair, the teeth, the vast, low-slung, lopsided bosom make her quite special.
Somewhere to put your beer.
Oh, dear.
So the answer is that they've all had their bears displayed at the Teddy Bear Museum. Edwina Curry, owner of Omar the Bear, presents a weekly show on BBC 5 Live and says, I'd like to see my radio programmes recognised as unmissable. The audiences are shooting up. Probably the only way to get through it. Which, pause for thought, brings this particular picnic to an end, and it's Paul and Michael who are looking stuffed. Behind as they are, 10-5. And so for the casual relief of our final missing words round, in which the usual incomplete news lines will be interspersed, or in extreme circumstances not, with those from this week's guest publication, the austere Teddy Bear Club International. That's the international magazine for the Teddy Bear Club, before readers of Club International get too excited. So, eyes down, look in on Major what to aid Archer?
Major Ronald Ferguson.
No.
Major miscarriage of justice.
It is in fact John Major.
Auctions teddy bear.
It's not from Teddy Bear Club International. It's something that Major used to great effect.
Soapbox.
Oh,
he's got his
soapbox. Gives his soapbox. Lends his soapbox.
Digs out his soapbox. Yeah. This is John Major, who used his soapbox in the 1992 election to make contact with the electorate, and in the 1997 election to pack his socks in as he left Downing Street.
Oh, shame.
Next, Edward in what again?
Mrs. Simpson.
No.
Edward
in trouble.
That'll be it.
Well, I'll give you one for trouble.
In trouble?
Beeb trouble is in fact the answer. This is Edward's voiceover on a BBC video, which was shot at Sandringham on condition that Edward was given a role to play. Right. Next, what with attitude?
Teddy bear. 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 Bear.
All right, you got 1 point. Yes,
Hey.
bears.
Bears.
These are bears with silver ear and nose rings, biker jackets and leather boots. And if you wish I was making it up, just look at this.
Cute, aren't they?
And finally, Martians to get invitation to what?
Dome.
Teddy Bear's Picnic?
Yeah, Millennium Dome. To judge instant mashed potato contest. It could be.
Yeah. To Bedlington is the answer. This is a CD-ROM that's going to be made
no
about
such
the
thing.
delights of, Bedlington in Northumberland and sent by NASA to Mars. So that should stop them invading. Which collective dither brings us pondering to the end of tonight's wonder, in which this week's Lowdown Bums have been Paul and Michael with 9, and this week's Smart Asses have been Ian and Giles with 13. So, yellow jerseys to our winners, one of Giles's jerseys to our losers. And I leave you with news that in the Philippines, police try out their new consignment of stealth motorbikes. The Prime Minister puts on a brave face as Mo Molam returns with half the cabinet from a trip through a time machine. And there's another step forward in the Irish peace process as the Pope grants an audience to Ian Paisley. Good night.
It's brand new comedy from the writers of Father Ted next here on BBC Two, and the hippies have a big problem with facial hair and a musical Jesus.